All right, welcome back. We are going to be looking at another lesson in our quadrilaterals and polygons unit. We're going to be on page 96 in our notebook here. And the previous lesson talked about certain properties of parallelograms. And this one's going to go into the next one, which is properties of a rhombus. So again, we are on page 96 for this one. So here we have properties of rhombus. And a rhombus, kind of maybe the definition here of a rhombus. A rhombus is a quadrilateral with both pairs of opposite sides parallel and 4 congruent sides. Okay, so it's really a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides. So we need to note here that the properties of parallelogram apply. Okay, so any properties that we had back on page 95. Okay, so the opposite angles, the opposite sides, congruent, consecutive angles are supplementary, and diagonals bisect each other. Those still apply. And we're actually going to get just a little bit more specific on some of them. So there's only 2 properties here that we have with a rhombus, and that is number 1, a parallelogram is a rhombus if and only if, which is spelled IFF. This stands for if and only if its diagonals are perpendicular. Okay, and a picture of what that might look like. Let's say I've got this rhombus here. All sides are the same. Okay, so I try to make all sides the same there. And my diagonals here, and here are perpendicular, which means they meet there at a 90-degree angle. Okay, number 2, a parallelogram is a rhombus if and only if its diagonals bisect opposite angles. Okay, this one's a little more tricky, but I think the picture here that we're going to draw will help a lot. So again, we have a rhombus or a parallelogram. Okay, and then we're gonna look at the diagonals. Okay, now remember the first property says that those diagonals are perpendicular. And then this second property here says that these diagonals will bisect opposite angles, which means that this angle down here gets bisected. So this angle is the same as this one. And since these opposite angles are the same, these angles up here are also the same as the angles down here. So now you have 4 congruent angles. And then these 2 angles are congruent. And these 2 angles are congruent. And these 2 are congruent to these 2. So you got 4 angles up here. And these angles are not the same. Okay. These 2 angles aren't the same. But these 4 together will make 180 because they're supplementary. That was from the property of a parallelogram. Okay, so I do have an example, just one on this one. And then I have some practice problems on IXL that I will give you. And in the end, you're just going to have one quiz for all of these properties. Okay. All right, so the picture. So we have a rhombus. And we have A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, 2 diagonals. We have X, 2X minus 5. This angle is Y. This angle here is 28. And it says that this whole angle right here is angle Z. Okay, so we're going to find X, Y, Z. So it says if parallelogram A, B, C, D is a rhombus, find X, Y, Z. Okay, so I'm gonna change colors here so we can do this. So let's just start with X. Because a rhombus is also a parallelogram, we know from the properties of parallelograms that this length right here and this one will be the same. The diagonals bisect each other. So however long this is, that's the same as this. So X actually equals 2X minus 5. Okay, so then we're going to subtract 2X. And X minus 2X is -1. So you have negative X equals -5. Divide both sides by -1. And you get X equals 5. Now with the angles, a lot of times we want to do that on, like, maybe draw on the picture. So property number 2 said that these diagonals bisected the angles. So if this is 28 down here, this angle right here is also 28. Which means that the whole thing, if I take 28 plus 28, I get this whole angle. And because a rhombus is a parallelogram, these opposite angles are the same. So Z actually equals 28 plus 28. So Z equals 28 plus 28, which is 56 degrees. So Z is 56. Now I have to find Y. Y is a little bit more tricky, okay? If this is Y, this right here is also Y. And I know that Z is 56. And if I take this angle, which is 2Y, okay? And if I add it to Z, which was 56, I get 180, because one of the properties of a parallelogram says that consecutive angles are supplementary. So if I take 2Y plus 56, that will equal 180. Okay, then we'll subtract 56. 2y equals 7, 4, 124. Divide by 2. And y equals 62 degrees. Okay, so this y right here is 62 degrees. We don't actually have to divide that one in half because we already did divide the 124 in half. Okay, so that gives us some examples of what we can do with the rhombus properties. Again, a rhombus is a parallelogram, so all four of the properties from the previous lessons still apply. And remember, in a rhombus, all four sides are the exact same length. Okay, so I'll attach some IXL practice for you to go through. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out so that we can get those answered. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next lesson.